Before we start today's episode, I wanted to spotlight the fact that a YouTuber in the Mega Man community, ColeFam, aka ColeManX, has recently been hit with some struggles regarding home damages and costly repairs. He's doing weekly Mega Man live streams to raise funds, dubbing it the Repair the Flutter project. Link to the video in the description if you'd like to help out and donate, or just support by watching. But yeah, now we can get back to your regularly scheduled program. Back before the year 2010, Mega Man was on just about every single device that could run video games. Sony's PlayStation Portable from the mid-2000s was no exception. I always loved the PSP as a kid, got a bunch of playtime out of Daxter and Ben 10 and Sonic Rivals on this thing, and as I got older there were other franchises I liked with games on PSP like Metal Gear and of course, Mega Man. Mega Man got two games in the PSP, both were remakes of classic installments. First, we got Mega Man Maverick Hunter X, a remake of the beloved Mega Man X from Super Nintendo. And then we got the focus of today's video, Mega Man Powered Up, a remake of the first Mega Man game from the original Nintendo. This might come as a surprise to the folks watching this video, but I've actually never played Mega Man Powered Up before. I had tried it for a few minutes a long time ago, but never played the whole thing. I say it might be a surprise because I'm such a big Mega Man fan, but also because I've gone on record saying that I've played Maverick Hunter X for well over 100 hours. When I was like 14, I played Maverick Hunter X almost every day on my PlayStation Vita. But I was always a way bigger fan of Mega Man X than Mega Man Classic. But if Powered Up was on the Vita, which it was not, I definitely would have played it. So I never got around to beating this game until this very video. I did know that Powered Up was a pretty transformative remake, though, which doesn't surprise me. Mega Man 1 is Mega Man 1. The series was almost 20 years old when Powered Up came out, and a lot of stuff had changed about the fundamentals of Mega Man. So it naturally follows that a remake would be very different from the original game, which is in my opinion still a good game, just very unrefined. By comparison, Maverick Hunter X was a more direct remake, since X1 didn't really have as much to change compared to Mega Man 1. But the evidence that this game was changing a lot can be seen right from the start. Upon picking new game, you have the choice between old style and new style. The new style is everything we'll be talking about today, but the old style is a faithful remake of the original game. The graphics are still new and the gameplay is still powered up, but it's the original level design from Mega Man 1 with no alterations. The music is back to its original 8-bit style, and there are only the original 6 bosses with the original weakness chain and weapon balance, and there's no cutscenes and no dialogue or anything like that. Not a lot of remakes do this. Some might include a copy of the original as an unlockable, but this is like 2 remakes in one. You have the original game remade and the original game reimagined on one disc. For old style, they even pulled back the FOV to create an 8:7 aspect ratio look to make it look more like the original game, when new style is just full widescreen. I think having something like this gave the devs more leeway when making changes to the game for the new style mode, because something like the original is still in the game. One of the first major changes in new style is the emphasis on the story and characters. The game begins with an opening cutscene that establishes the time and place, and that Dr. Wily is jealous of Dr. Light's robots and has stolen and reprogrammed them with the intent of taking over the world. He literally says he now just decided he's going to take over the world, like as if he mulled it over before going through with it. I just thought that was funny. But yeah, Dr. Wily does not steal Light's helper robots Rock and Roll, and then Rock becomes Mega Man. It's the same setup as the original game, just now the backstory is in the game, not just the manual. But one change to the English script for this game is that Mega Man's pedestrian name has been changed from Rock to Mega. The Mega Man series is no stranger to musical puns, hence the names Rock and Roll. In Japan, it's the Rockman series. Rock just went from being called Rock to Rockman. I feel like it can still make sense for Rock to go from that to Mega Man just fine. Calling him Mega in his pedestrian form is a strange change, because now there's no musical play at all. But anyway, before you get into the game, you have to play an intro stage. That became a standard feature in these games before you could get to the stage select. It's nothing amazing or stand out, you just learn the basics of jumping and attacking here. But once that's done, you see that one of the most noteworthy changes to the gameplay of Powered Up is that they added 2 extra Robot Masters. The original Mega Man had only 6 levels before the Fortress. Mega Man 2 bumped that up to 8, and that became the standard in every game that followed it. So now we have Bomb Man, Guts Man, Cut Man, Elec Man, Ice Man, and Fire Man, but they're joined by Time Man and Oil Man. 2 bosses that fit in with Mega Man 1's style, where the bosses have basically the same body type, but the design really highlights their features that make them unique, compared to later games which just made the bosses more physically distinct. Powered Up has a much different art style than any other Mega Man game, going for a chibi look across the board. It's not my favorite look for the series. I've gone on record in saying that I think Mega Man 7 has the best art in the classic Mega Man franchise, but I think this works at being a cute interpretation of the classic Mega Man world. Perhaps that would be inappropriate if this was a Mega Man Zero game or even a Mega Man X game, but classic Mega Man has always had a cute quality to it, and this is just making that more pronounced. While this is not my favorite art style in the series, it's definitely the best animated Mega Man game. All the movement looks really smooth, and there's good attention to detail. If you walk into a wall, Mega Man won't just stop moving, he'll bump into it and put his hand on the wall. Defeated bosses will fly away, and if they hit the wall, they'll stretch out and flatten against it before going back to normal when hitting the ground. It looks really cartoony, compared to any other 3D Mega Man game which usually look really stiff and stock. The game, on paper, plays the same as the original. Everything you can do in the original is what you can do here, but it feels way better to play. Mega Man felt both slippery and heavy at the same time in the original, but in Powered Up, the controls were super smooth and responsive. No complaints or issues here. The level design has received alterations to accommodate this fact, though. Every stage will feel familiar if you've played the original game. Elecman stage is still a climb up with electrical traps in the way there, Gutsman stage still sees Mega Man navigating these platforms going back and forth, and Iceman stage still has disappearing and reappearing blocks, and Fireman stage forces you to dodge enemies rising out of the lava. So spiritually, the levels are very similar to their original incarnations, but they've been better balanced. Gutsman stage in the original game was really short once you got past the opening platforming sequence. It feels better paced here. And then, the huge difficulty spike in Iceman stage was removed. Since you can pick any of the 8 stages first, it's good to balance them to where any would be a viable pick for a first-time player. The new levels for Oil Man and Time Man work well too. In Oil Man stage, the oil will cause Mega Man to slip on his butt if you move, but the fire weapon clears the oil. Time Man stage is a series of timing challenges with these swinging things you need to avoid. Neither level is super complex or break in the classic Mega Man bank, but I think that's a good thing since the levels were made to fit in with Mega Man 1, a game that had very simple stage ideas. And these are no exception. With more Robot Masters comes a switched up boss order. In this game, the weakness chain goes as follows. You start with Cut Man, and then Bomb Man, Ice Man, Fire Man, Oil Man, Elect Man, Time Man, and Guts Man. Weapons pack quite a punch against bosses, but I don't think special weapons are that useful outside of that. The Rolling Cutter is good for hurting multiple enemies at once, but most others are too situational to be useful, like the Oil Slide. And then the ammo pool is too low for most weapons. The Thunder Beam and the Firestorm don't pack the same punch they used to because they don't have a lot of ammo in this. But it is nice that each one gets a weapon demo screen, and that you can swap between weapons with the shoulder buttons, so those standard Mega Man conventions are now in Mega Man 1. But like I said, the weapons aren't that useful in this. What's great about this game is that you can decimate bosses with their weaknesses, but the game actually gives you incentive not to. If you battle the bosses Buster only, the harder way, you're rewarded by seeing that Robot Master come back to their senses and getting repaired by Dr. Light. If you do that, you can then play as them. This game of any Mega Man game might have the most built-in replay value because you can tackle every stage as all 8 of the Robot Masters, unlockable by beating them Buster only. Something you can go back and do because replaying a stage lets you fight the boss again. So if you used the weakness the first time around, you can go back and try it Buster only later. Each Robot Master has their own attacks and unique moves, like Cut Man being able to wall jump like Mega Man X. And the game comes with a bunch of other unlockables too, like giving Mega Man the charge and the slide from later games. The slide felt a little slow, but it was great to have. And you could play as Roll and Proto Man, both feeling super powerful as Roll destroys her enemies with her broom and Proto Man blasting super powerful charge shots. There's a lot to experience when replaying Mega Man Powered Up, including easy, normal, and hard variants of every stage. And there was a full stage builder too, one where you could upload your levels online and download other people's. The online function of this game is long gone, but it was pretty cool that it existed at all, and for as long as it did. I'm not really into the whole create your own stage kind of thing, but it is a neat concept to have in a Mega Man game. But as you might expect, once you beat the 8 stages, it's time for the Wily Fortress. The first one is much easier than the original because there's no room of spikes to avoid with Mega Man 1 control, nor do you need the magnet beam to clear a section. In fact, the magnet beam isn't even in the game when you play new style. If you want to use it, you have to play old style. But all that ease comes crashing down in the first fortress boss against the Yellow Devil. This is a pretty infamous boss in the original game, but now there's no cheat to get past him. He's really hard to beat because you can only stand within this tiny window between the whirlwinds or else you'll take damage. You don't have a lot of time to react to it, so I died a lot here. And then I thought of a genius idea. I'll play the stage on easy and clear him in no time. Which I then did. It was a great idea. The later Fortress levels aren't much of a challenge if you made it this far, though. The only part that really tripped me up was this disappearing, reappearing block section that came right before the boss rush. But you all know why I don't like this part. I've been over it 100 times in different Mega Man videos, but specifically, Guts Man here is weak to Time Man's weapon, but it only has 2 shots and it takes more than that to beat him. So doing all this on like 2 lives with no E-tanks proved pretty annoying. And I also had a bit of a tough time with the underwater boss, since it requires more timing and patience to beat compared to the OG, which felt more like a war of attrition. But on the bright side, Copy Mega Man was defeated pretty easily. And lastly, Dr. Wily was an interesting new take on the old boss fight because he uses all the boss's weapons against you throughout this version of the final boss. So it's a real test of skill in that sense. But once you win, it's the same ending as the original. Mega Man stops Wily and runs home to Roll and Dr. Light, and all the other Robot Masters you saved along the way. Once I finished the game, I could tell I was missing out all these years of having not played this game. It brings a lot to the classic Mega Man table. From playing as the Robot Masters to providing a story mode with voice acting to the original Mega Man, there's a lot of content packed into this game, and I think that's pretty impressive. It's not my favorite Mega Man or even close to that bar, but I think it's a really solid game that I'd love to see make a comeback at some point in the future, because it's a pretty worthy remake of the iconic first game. But then that got me thinking, is it better than the original game? Well, technically I'd say it's a lot better. I mean, I can't think of a single thing the original Mega Man does that's better than the remake. Especially because the remake includes a faithful version of the original game in it, so it's a better game almost by default. However, I can't imagine myself playing this over the original. I don't tend to revisit Mega Man 1 that much anyway, but if I did, it would probably just be the NES game. I had similar thoughts when I did my last video on Maverick Hunter X, where I said that there wasn't really an area where it went wrong that the original went right. I just thought X1 hit more for me than the remake. This is different though, in that I thought X1 and Maverick Hunter X were of roughly equal quality, but I think Powered Up is a better game than the original. But be it nostalgia or whatever, I would sooner come back to the NES version than this. Even though Powered Up was a solid game and remake. It's just a shame because they definitely wanted to do sequels to this, remaking Mega Man 2 and onward, but this game was met with the same fate as Mega Man Maverick Hunter X, where they wanted to remake X2 and onward but never got the chance. Neither Maverick Hunter X or Powered Up were successful enough to justify further remakes on PSP. I often hear people say that was a shame because the PSP not being as popular as the DS is why these games didn't sell that well and didn't get sequels, but I don't believe that to be true at all. I think these games didn't sell that well because Mega Man isn't that popular. The PSP had a pretty sizable install base. It wasn't DS numbers, but not bad at all. It had numerous financially successful titles for both younger and older demographics. It was, again, just because Mega Man isn't a popular series. The Mega Man games on the infinitely more popular DS didn't sell well either. Mega Man games on PS2 didn't sell well despite that being one of the biggest consoles of all time. These remakes just released at a time where the series was churning out a lot of games, but also when the diminishing returns were starting to hit pretty bad, which led to the series' eventual hiatus. So, it is a shame that we never got Powered Up 2 or Maverick Hunter X2. I would have loved to see those classic games get the treatment that Mega Man 1 or X1 got, but hey, at least we have these games, because I think both are pretty darn good. And for me, that's enough.